It's the Kink Consultant Podcast, where we're turning up the heat on all things kink and dating, relationships, and pop culture. So close the door, plug in your headphones, and let's get down to it. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I have Brenda back again. We're having our weekly business meeting, and we're going to take the first few minutes, half hour, to talk about what I've been up to in the last week.
I just need to know how your weekend went and were there any special dates?
Sometimes I feel like there were too many special dates. I don't even know where to start because I'm like, where did we leave off?
The last thing that we talked about was basically Target guy is 6 weeks out. So what's next?
And I'm still talking to him, so that's still going. But then I was in LA for a bit visiting family when we were talking last week. I didn't go on any dates then, but as soon as I landed back in Vegas, I literally went home, freshened up, and went for a lunch date on the Strip, which isn't a normal Vegas thing to do, right? You don't go to the Strip if you're from Vegas.
Okay.
This guy was from out of town. I started talking to him on Hinge, and there's like a couple of things you need to know. His profile said 47 or 48. He's actually 58, but he wrote that. Not that it's old, it's just that I'm 36. That's 22 years older. That's a big age gap for me. I'm not against age gaps, just I didn't even have my filters set that high. Is it a red flag that he lied about his age? Absolutely. However, in his profile, he does clearly say I'm 58, but he was using it to sort of like circumnavigate the filters, which obviously worked. I don't recommend it. That's why I'm not sure how I feel about this person, but there was something about him. We set up a phone call and he explained he's in town a lot for work, but he doesn't live here. So this time I'm like, okay, I'm going to meet him. We've had the phone call. I understand his situation. He's pretty honest about everything. I meet him for lunch. He chooses the place. I love the restaurant, Ding Tai Fung in the Aria. I met him for lunch. The reservation wasn't ready. He put our name on the list and we had to walk around until we got a text. We finally got the text message. In that walk, I felt like we'd had a full first date, because we walked for 15 minutes and walked and talked so quickly. That's like the one thing about when you're walking next to each other, you can't just really take each other. He seems kind. Like he has a kind face type of thing, you know? And the more we talk, the more interested we become in each other.
So I like immediately have like I'm out vibes. Like I'm done.
No, okay, do you know what it is? The age difference is so not for me. Like obviously I have it set to 12 years older, 48. This was a little much, but I like him. And then he compliments me in ways that I like to be complimented. He said, I like the way you think. You think really fast. I think really slow. He's like, I'm very analytical. And I joked with him. I was like, I wish I could be analytical. Because like I am constantly just in the moment and going.
Yeah.
I feel really awkward about the age thing, actually. I feel so awkward that even talking about it is kind of weird because
I can tell. Like it's
yeah.
like you that's why I'm saying like the vibe from you is like no bueno, you know?
I know. And it's not like that. I think that what I'm giving off right now is a little bit how I felt because as much as I was enjoying it, I couldn't get past the age. I start to dig a little deeper. Like he's been really vague about his job up until now, and that bothers me. But I'm also thinking we met online dating. This man is, once again, older. Of course, he's cagey. He's not like, you know, my whole life is online. I ask him a little bit more, and he eventually opens up and talks about some high profile roles he was in previously and how he got out of the field because of XYZ reason that he didn't like it. And I am being vague because it is the type of thing where you can go Google. And I knew I could go home and Google it afterwards, but instead I'm trying to be more forthcoming with people. I'm trying to say like, I'm pretty honest and blunt about who I am, and I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking about you right now. So I said, listen, I lived and dated in New York for many years. You do not have the ego, the temperament, any of the things that people who hold the roles you're saying you had, you don't have that. I was like, so I'm very skeptical of what you've said. He didn't even try and convince me. He said, I'm not even going to spend time trying to convince you. You do your research. We'll enjoy lunch, whatever you decide. We have this lovely lunch. It finishes. I don't even think anything of it. I go home and I don't research him right away because I've got other stuff to do. It was good, but it wasn't so great that I'm like obsessively looking. I think I say like, hey, thanks for lunch. It was lovely. Because I always say thank you if someone buys lunch. The next morning when I wake up, I'm like, okay, pull out the laptop, get on LinkedIn, go look for this person.
Let's see who this guy is.
I definitely had the wrong last name. If you sounded it out, it started with a J and I used a C. I looked up the totally wrong name, couldn't find much online. I was like, this guy's a liar. He didn't think I thought smart. Like I went down a whole spiral of thinking like, oh, he didn't try and convince me because that wasn't him anyway. He just thought we'd have a nice lunch. I was like, this was his his shtick. And instead of digging deeper, asking his last name, doing any type of research, I didn't want him to know how seriously I was taking this. So I was like, I'm just going to be coy. And when I found nothing,
Did you
I
text
did
him?
text him. I texted him. I said, hi, blank. I had fun yesterday, but I just don't trust everything you said about your career. I sensed something wasn't true, and I'm going to go with my gut and end this. So I didn't even explain that I tried to look it up. He thinks that
You've written him off.
I've written him off, but also without doing any research, which is in line with what I had said yesterday about how I'm always in the moment. I'm less analytical. That wasn't doing me any justice because
Yeah,
in this moment, I'd been sort of analytical, but like half-assed it by not asking his last name.
absolutely.
He says, do search on the internet for me. This is my name. He clarifies like his role, the name of the company, all of that. And then he says this, I feel a bit in shock by your action. I think everything I said is true. I am a special person. So if your gut is telling you not to trust me to end before we begin, there is something else going on. So like,
For those of you at home, I just raised my hand like, no,
I
thank
know
you.
I felt the same way, right? So then he goes, I know when he's texting all these, basically, I come back to 6 or 7 texts, by the way.
Right.
I'm in and out of client meetings, so I don't know what he's saying. I am sad, but I also wonder what I said you think is untrue. You can independently verify. And then he goes through lists of pretty high profile people. Okay. I can verify that we're on boards that he was on and stuff like that. And I'm just like, that's a little too much, but because any of
Yeah.
that's Googleable. I don't want to have to convince you about my career. I feel that is boasting or selling myself on my career success when I want my partner to appreciate me for other qualities too. I've had such a successful career that you can easily verify. I have no problem with you verifying me, but why would you not want to verify first before ending us? I think that's a fair question to ask.
I see two clear paths here. There is either the I'm a extreme narcissist, because let's face it, we all have those people in our lives, so we can see little things like, oh, you didn't think I was good enough, so I'm going to give you all of the stuff. I'm going to tell you all of the reason why you should be liking me, which is what he just did. He basically bombed you with all of that.
The only defense I will give this person is I'm not responding to the messages. So
Mhm.
he has like 15 minutes between where I think he thinks he's just trying to grab me back, which
Yeah.
only makes it worse.
Well, I was going to say, to my first point was, if that's what he's trying to do, then
Yeah.
that's why
Yes.
he's potentially narcissistic material.
Exactly. Okay, so then he texts a couple of things more just being like, I recognize he was like, for the relationship type we want, meaning DS, he's like,
Yeah.
trust is really important. And if you don't trust me and you don't want to build trust, then he recognizes that this isn't going to work. And I'm going to read out the last text. So I've come back to this 2 hours later, and this is the last text he had sent. Amanda, from our short meeting, I think I can see some of you. On the psychological level, as your potential dom, you need to really trust me. You don't want to go down this road with anyone who might betray your trust in the future, so you are careful. Also, I see that you are spontaneous. You told me you want to be more thoughtful this year. Please do your research on me. Be analytical and thorough. I am here.
Okay, so now I feel like I didn't have all of the information from the
I know, but I'm
get-go.
I'm giving it to you in real time, all of these things that we're processing, right? Because I read the first text, I'm like, I'm out. I read the second text, I'm like, maybe I'm in. I'm going back and forth. I'm like, okay, these are the right things. But then when you're taking on this roller coaster in a few short texts that you read in one
Yeah.
grouping, like I had to go back and look at the timing because I'm like, why do I have 7 texts?
It feels like it was such an escalation, though, from like, oh, I'm really sad, but here's some information.
Yeah. And I responded, okay, let me do my research. And then I text him later and I said, hi, are you available to talk on the phone? We find a time to talk. And what's really funny is we have to address it. We have to talk about it. I'm like, yes, I looked, I saw, you're right. I was able to verify all of that with the help of some friends who have access to some other stuff, like
Yeah.
information where they were able to really verify for me. And they were like, all of this is very legit. So we get on the phone. And what's funny, he talks about his emotional roller coaster that he went through. When I
You.
went back and read the text, I can see it. He's like, yeah, at first I was really shocked. And then I was sad. And then I was upset at you. But then I calmed down and really thought this through about how important it is. And then I go back and I read the text and I'm like, oh yeah, I see where he was
I
sad.
see it
Yeah, it's
very
like,
clearly.
yeah. So he does think slowly, as in like he recognizes in 5 minutes, I go through so many emotions that I could not call them out to you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Over the course of, I guess, an hour, he goes through so many, but they're so deeply rooted and thoughtful for
Yeah.
him that he recognizes them. Again, I don't want to sell myself short, but I'm really in the moment. He is less so.
Mm.
So that's how we're both approaching it. And we agree to chat further. Now, you have to remember, he does not live in Vegas. I live in Vegas. One of the other things I'm realizing as I do my research and I look all this up, this man is not only of a different generation, he is of a different level of wealth that I am not so familiar with. And I'm starting
Like
to put this
New
together. So,
York wealthy? Like,
yeah, like New York bi-coastal owns properties in both
huh.
areas, which I guess is some people are like, that's not that much wealth. And I'm like, that's more wealth than I
Than
think most people
what I
have.
currently have.
And I don't know if I'll have that at 58. And I'm pretty sure he had a lot of wealth by my age too.
Yeah.
So,
Listen, wealth is a whole other conversation. It's not something for every, like, do you know what I mean? Like, to me, like, great. It's a plus, but is
yeah.
it the thing that's gonna like put you over? You know what I'm saying?
And then I'm going back to thinking about things on our date. It is a plus, but I'm also like, oh my gosh.
What stupid things did you say?
Yeah, I literally thought, I was like, how bad did I sound? Backing up a little bit, we figure out on this date that we want to see each other again. This is before the whole snafu
Yeah.
of the situation. We want to see each other again. He's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, oh, Central Park's my favorite place. Let's go to Central Park. Like, and I just think this man probably is looking to sweep me off my feet or something and
Hmm.
go to these nice restaurants or something. He talks about what he enjoys doing, and he's like, I love to go to Michelin star restaurants before they have their star. And I think nothing of this really, because I'm like, that's a very New York foodie thing to say.
Okay.
I like the park. And so I'm thinking back to that, and I'm just like, what I'm realizing is there are a lot of differences. It's not just age, it's not just the way we think. It's also, I think, I don't know how much that counts. I mean, it counts. We all know it does. It's
Yeah.
a way people match up. It's a way people measure against each other and decide the type of relationships they want to end up in. It always makes sense. It's a little bit weirder when there's no way he doesn't know where I'm at. There's like an imbalance there that I'm not a big fan of either. So, as a sub who dates as a sub, one of the things that's important to me is finding balance in the actual relationship in all other places because there's so much power exchange. When real power exchange comes into it because one person is wealthier or there's an age difference, that actually tips the balance too much for me. And these are all things that I think about.
See, now that's interesting because in my head, I see it as like you being the sub, him being the dom, regardless, like those are your two separate jobs. So that just may be a part of his job. So I
No,
don't
no,
sound like
that's
an
totally
idiot.
fine. It's sort of like, well, isn't this the trope? Wealthy older man.
Right.
I just realized that now. Like we're
Like
talking.
you are the hardworking girl who's trying to make her name for herself, and like in swoops Christian Grey or whatever his name is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
literally what's happening right now. So like I know you're nervous about the age and all that kind of stuff, but if there was any kind of remote spark, like why not just have fun
It's
with it and see what happens? What's tickling you in the back going, I don't know.
I think it's the mix of both, right? Because the age thing at the start, I don't know. My gut telling me something was off. And I
Mm,
think it's not that my gut was wrong. I think that one of the things that I didn't realize was just like he had mentioned career success, but I didn't realize how much career success he had had.
yeah. And maybe that's why he was so touchy about that, is because that's something, let's face it, a lot of men, when it comes to their careers, those are their babies, right? And by you saying, well, I don't really know, maybe that was your little knife to him.
Yeah, maybe that was. Maybe I really twisted the knife with
And
that one.
he's like, what do you mean I wasn't successful? Like, that's a
Yeah.
kick in the balls.
Whatever it was, I think that we're fine. Like, I think I am going to go on the second date because it's going
Okay.
to be in New York City over the holidays because he's going to be there for the holidays.
So it
I'm going to be
works out.
there. It's not that I'm trying to date a ton while I'm spending time with my family, but
Yeah.
I can go for a Michelin star dinner or a walk
I
in Central
mean,
Park.
twist my rubber arm.
So that was Wednesday's date.
Okay. There's more.
Thursday's date. I'm a little hesitant to even talk about this one too, because I was seeing a sub for a couple of weeks. I'm a
Okay.
switch. We were seeing each other. The thing about me and the sub were we activated each other and not always in a good way. It could be fiery, good and bad. We were both super sensitive around each other. There were things that he would say that would make me feel on edge or anxious because I'm like, what's he thinking? There were things I would say and he would feel the same way. And we would go through cycles of this.
Do you think it's because you are the switch and you have the sub capabilities in you? So sometimes it's hard not to turn those off.
In the beginning, I didn't have that issue at all. But like the more I began to care about him, I think the harder it became to
Oh.
handle being in that dominant role, like all of the time, what he expected, what he wanted. It was difficult. And I think that he would argue that completely. And he would say, well, no, it was really hard to
I
be.
loved every moment of it. No, you
Yeah.
didn't.
No, it's so true, actually, because it's so funny you say that. That is something that he would say, I think. He would say something like, no, everything was great. You've done nothing wrong. And I'd be like, no, 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 you clearly just stated that I did. So it is, which is it?
That's also the dynamic too for the subdom, right? I mean, for the most part, like his job is to make you happy and make sure.
I see my approach to doming is different. I think a lot of people have that, but for me, I'm like, I want to help someone grow. We brought a lot out in each other that I don't think like either of us had felt
Mm.
before. But at the same time, it became quite emotionally taxing. So we've ended things since and decided to stay friends because the
Okay.
friendship thing is very real.
So how do you turn that off? Because like I can't imagine going from one situation to the next, like the
I
next, you
love
know.
that you asked that question. How do you turn that off? We're taking a 30-day break from each other.
Okay, so a literal detox.
And it comes at the right time because it's the holidays. I'll be out of town. He'll be out of town. I'm sad about it too.
Well, it's
I'm
because you are losing a friend regardless,
Yeah,
right? So
I'm losing a part of a relationship I have with someone
yeah.
while still keeping the friendship part. It doesn't stop me from wanting to see him grow, wanting to help him. Like I'm
I'm
forever going to want to give him dating advice,
I'm
in
interested
his
to know
life.
more about that aspect of it because it feels for me like from the beginning that relationship was very much just like, okay, I want to take care of you. I want to like do all the things.
Yeah, but I would think of as the perfect DS dynamic, right? Because we had a dynamic more than a relationship, I
Okay.
guess you could say. We were taking care of each other and we were looking out for each other in different ways. It wasn't more than that, but I just felt it.
Okay,
It's hard
well,
to
I'm going to
put
play
in
devil's
words.
advocate and say
Go.
maybe a lot of that is the past traumas of other things, and having that very close afterwards may have impacted those feelings a little bit more.
Sometimes, like, you do need that outer perspective on your own relationship because when you're
Yeah.
in it, no matter who you are,
You're
like
not seeing it straight.
you can come at it as analytically as possible, but once emotions and feelings get involved,
Yeah.
it's hard to stay the course. I ended that one because I just realized this is going to continue in circles. And if there's even a chance at friendship, it has to end now. But I'm also not ready to give up the dominant side. Like I am a switch, and having a submissive partner is nice. That's something I really need to think on what I want. And that's what all of this process is about. It's sort of like, what am I looking for? Try all the things. So then there was one more date on Friday night.
Date number 3. Check. Let's do this.
Date number three, third date. Someone I hadn't even kissed.
Never been kissed, guy.
I'm going on his third date. We're going to play mini golf. I'm super competitive, and already he's sort of hit a nerve with me because he jokes about how we'll like shit talk and banter. And I'm just
Okay.
thinking, if this man banters with me and I'm
Mhm.
losing, can I keep my cool?
Okay, I saw a snippet of your stories about this. So I know maybe just a little bit, but that's it.
The worst part is he also saw that story. He saw the story and then he texted me. He said, I saw your story. I'm going to mute so I don't see any stories about tonight because that's sort of not fair. Yeah. So it's a mini golf. It's like 9 holes. We kissed on the eighth hole.
Aw.
Yeah, it felt right.
Was it like princess kiss?
No, it was like mid laugh kiss. I laughed and smiled the whole time. It
Aw.
was a lot of fun, a really nice date. We had so much fun.
Well, now we can't call him never been kissed.
I know, but I really like Never Been Kissed because the first 2 dates I wanted to be kissed. And I was like, what is this? So he picked me up for mini golf. It was our third date, and I didn't want to drive. Parking on the strip is annoying. For two of us to have to do it, it
Got it.
just doesn't make sense. And I know earlier said no one goes to the strip for lunch or dinner. For an activity, you go
It's
because
the only time of day it's
a
good.
lot of activities are only on the strip, like
Okay,
keep
got it.
golf.
Okay.
Okay. And we're at this place called Swingers. I just have to tell you about when we're lining up, ready to go in. The woman asks me something about my date. She says something, and I was like, oh, I've never met this man in my life. I just met him tonight,
Yeah.
pretending that we didn't know each other until
Yep.
now. And he took that joke and ran with it because then somebody else came up and they were like, oh, how long have you two been together? And he said, "Oh, we just met tonight in the parking lot." He like upped the ante on the lie because now
Oh,
we're in like this
so
is the
good.
waiter who's going to be serving us as we play. Regardless of how many times we met, the guy did say he was like, "Whoa, you two seem like you've been together for a really long time. You just have a vibe about you." And I think that's true. We flowed really well. Okay, so I think it's a good sign that we are vibing well. But he picked me up for this date, and the whole plan was he would come back and we'd hang out more because we've both been so busy. He's
Right.
actually busier than I am. He has a lot of projects and stuff going on. I was like, let's go hang out at my house. We hung out, he came back, and one thing led to another, and we did have sex. And this was really my first time since the breakup. It's something I think I wanted to be more special, or I don't know. I believe have sex when you feel like it. There's zero shame. I'm not one of those people who's like, there has to be love. There has to be this.
Yeah.
I don't put any type of conditions on
Okay.
sex except for feeling good about it.
Okay.
Right. And in the moment, I was doing what my body felt like doing. I trusted this person. We took necessary precautions. Like he came prepared. I
Yep.
was ready. But what ended up happening was, I mean, it was great. I cannot deny that. His voice, his body, like all of it was working for me. I know. But it kicked off something in me where I had grieved every other part of my relationship with my ex. It was really easy to let go of all that. But what I hadn't grieved was the incredible intimacy we both had with each other. After 7.5 years, I mean, one of the things that possibly kept us together longer was the intimacy worked so well. I began grieving it. So after we finished, I went to the bathroom and cried. And not like a girly tear or two, like I sobbed in the bathroom. So he ended up staying the night and I didn't want him to leave. Like I wanted that reconnection after the aftercare side of things.
Yeah.
And he held me. He said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah." Because I just was grieving something and that was not anything to do with him. I really didn't want to get into it with him. So the next morning he had to leave pretty early, but I knew that. And he asked if I want to see him again or if I want to do that again, you know,
Yeah.
something to the effect of that. And I'm not a bad liar. I just don't like lying.
Yeah.
So I don't say anything at all because I don't even know the answer. The easy answer
Right.
is yes, of course. The harder answer is what would seeing him again look like when I'm already knowing or feeling in my body that this is not something I'm ready to do again? I am sensitive right now. I'm fragile and I recognize I need to process something. And I say, you know what? Last night, I don't think I was ready for that and I need to think on it. And he said, take all the time you need. He leaves. He sends a follow-up text. He said, "I want you to know I am here if you want to talk." He sends just a really thoughtful text. That's the thing about never been kissed. Never been kissed to already fucked was a quick turnaround, by the way, but like we're sticking with that name. He is a very thoughtful texter. This text is no different. It really makes me feel safe to take the
Mhm.
time I need to think through things. And also, if I did want to talk to him about anything, there wasn't going to be any judgment.
So what's stopping you from having that conversation with
I
him?
need the day to understand what I feel.
Got it.
I take the day, I text him really late in the evening. By the time I send this text, that's the other thing. You know, these people who are always busy,
Yeah.
waking up
Yeah.
super early, going to bed super early, making the
Yeah.
most of
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
daylight hours.
Yeah.
I said finally home because I'd been out with my girlfriends. It was Saturday night. I realize it's insanely late to be sending this text, but I've thought about it all day. The long and short of it is that I'm not ready to have sex and I don't know when I'm going to be ready again. As much as I enjoyed last night, I just know I'm not ready for more than surface level things with anyone. And sex is more than surface level for me. I don't have a proposal for next steps because I want to keep talking to you and flirting and hanging out, but I don't see any of that going anywhere further anytime soon. And I feel like those are my feelings. I think that's something a lot of people don't realize as much as I'm dating. I haven't had sex. I haven't had penetrative sex with anybody. And I think that when people see me dating all the time and because of what I do, they assume
There's
and I'm fine to let people assume what they want. That's on them. I can't be out and about being like, "I'm not having sex, by the way," because I did. So we go back and forth. The short answer that I got was that you aren't ready, which I accept and respect. But knowing you, there's more, or you wouldn't have come to a conclusion of any sort. And I can't really explain it, but he is right. There are parts of this that I'm not telling him. I say, okay, I don't know if you're reading it wrong. Part of me just thinks telling you the following would be impolite. Here we go. The only thing I haven't said to you is that I loved having sex with my ex. It kept us together for a long time after other things fell apart. I said, but I haven't had a chance to grieve the intimacy we had, and it took having sex to start the process. And it was weird because there were times last night where I thought, whoa, this is so much better. And then there were parts where I thought, I'm sad I'm never going to have sex with X
X.
again.
You're one orgasm away from knowing that that's not the truth,
Yeah.
or you know what I mean? Like,
I literally love that, actually. Yeah, that's
Okay,
I'm
we
just
know
seeing your photo.
logically that X is a bad situation and
Yes.
that all things X should not be even, no, stay away. But at the same time, like, it's something that you experienced for 7+ years. That's all you've known for the last 7 years, right? So now that you're actually actively out there and doing this all over again, those emotions that you've been suppressing for the last little while are going to come back up. You know what I mean? Like it's going to happen. And that just happened to happen after that.
I think the one question I'm left asking myself, you're left asking me is, what do I want?
I feel like we've had a couple of people come up that have seemed nice, but don't hit all the little check marks, you know? What are we thinking?
I'm thinking I'm going to slow down the dating a little bit, and the holiday season is perfect for that. That's number
Yeah.
one. I am going to continue talking to Never Been Kissed. I am
Okay.
going to have Target Guy in a
Yep.
few weeks, and then 58. We'll see what happens in New York.
I'm excited to see someone outside of your normal comfort zone.
I love this experiment that you're going to get to run on my dating life, but we'll see how it goes. With that said, I think it's important to note because I'm taking time off with family, I'm
Yeah.
going to take the next 2 weeks off from the podcast as well. Let's take a break, and I think we will reconvene with a ton of fun interviews in 2025. But also, like, I'll probably be recording in New York. I have so many amazing, talented friends in the scene, in the coaching space that I'm going to try and get interviews with in person and have conversations and learn about interesting kinky things. But I'll touch base on my dating as well. And I'll keep everyone updated on Instagram stories with all of the small details.
Excellent.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again in 2025. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone who might find it interesting. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out. Email info@thekinkconsultant.com. Until next time, keep on kinking on.